Hey friends, you're listening to the AI Entrepreneurs Podcast, where we talk tools, stories, and strategy for today's founders. I'm your host, Angelina Shively, and this show is for entrepreneurs who are curious about AI and want to know how to transform their businesses. In each episode, I share honest conversations about what's working, what's not, and the lessons learned along the way. If you're ready to use AI to save time, think bigger, and build smarter, you're in the right place. Let's go. All right, audience, I'm so glad to have you here and to be able to introduce the wonderful Andy Franco, who is a strategic marketing consultant with over 20 years of experience working with online coaches, course creators, and educators. And he helps them to get more leads, put their offers in front of the right people, and build growth that actually sticks. So, welcome to the show, Andy.
Thank you so much. I feel privileged to be here and to have had you invite me to speak with you. It's wonderful.
Yes. So Andy and I met in our wonderful Multiply program, which we are both a part of, and he is just a rock star in ads and did some training with us. And I was like, I want to have him to just be able to share his amazing experience. So why don't you tell us a little bit about how just your career in general and how you got started in the world of marketing?
Oh my gosh, that's opening a Pandora's box. It's hard for me to believe. And you mentioned this just in the intro that I've been doing this for 20 plus years, which just seems unfathomable. But in the late 90s, my mom was a child development specialist and she
Okay.
worked at Children's Hospital Los Angeles for 20 plus years and decided she wanted to leave and become an entrepreneur. So in the late
Okay.
90s, she started a business selling videos and training materials to colleges, universities, to on education, and like basically
Okay.
created a catalog of training materials for colleges, universities, training programs, early education. Very quickly went from a print catalog to an online business. So my mom started an e-commerce, B2B e-commerce in the late 90s.
Oh my gosh, that's amazing.
Insane. Like looking back at it, insane. And did this
Right.
all by herself, figured it out all by herself. And I was in college at that time, but after I graduated college, she had been running this business for a couple of years and was really, again, seeing the opportunity, seeing the ability to reach anybody around the world, and understanding how quintessentially important it was to be an online business owner. If you're gonna have a business, and it's much easier to sell to the world online than it is to create a print catalog.
Yeah, for
So,
sure.
so she and started in like when I graduated college, again, just like most kids, still trying to figure out what I wanted to do with my life. She at the time said, "Hey, do you want to come with me? I'm going to a marketing conference, and would you like to attend with me?" And I was like, "Sure, what the heck, why not?" So I went with
Right.
her to this conference, and I can't remember, I think it was in San Diego, and it was a conference called StomperNet, which was called at the time Stomping the Search Engines was their kind of like motif. And this was all
Okay.
of the gurus at the time that were really focused on SEO and like all the early, creations of SEO and what that looked like and how, you had people building websites and selling e-commerce and doing drop shipping. This is like the early days. And I started going to I went to this first conference, and at the end of the conference, I was like a deer in the headlights. I was like, this is the coolest thing ever, and I want to learn more. And so over the next years, I started working with her on her business, implementing all of the things that we were learning at the conference. So SEO, web design, like all creating video, and started doing this like in the early 2000s and continued to go to conferences and learning from, again, at the gurus at the time, even
Right.
though a lot of the gurus that we're currently still talking about were there. But it was for me, it was eye-opening, and it turned into what I do now. And so I started as a basically as a content strategist doing SEO, mapping out like funnel trees based on keywords. And then I started doing Google ads and started doing web design. I was a domainer. I used to buy and sell domain names. I did tons and tons of different stuff trying to get, again, at the time, you're trying to learn all of it. And over the
Right.
years, I started a company just doing that same thing, doing content mapping, content trees, building out content for people, working on SEO and backlinks, and then was doing some web design. And then it just has blossomed over the years in terms of starting my own businesses. And then a couple, about 8 years, well, I've done consulting for large Fortune 500 companies and entertainment companies and large video game companies. And then about 10 years ago, I was hired by a company called Square Enix, which is a big video game company. And we managed $1 million budget for Facebook ads for a big video game was rolling out. And we had one piece of ad creative for $1 million budget.
Oh my gosh.
And at the time, I was like, this is insane, and people clearly have no idea what they're doing. And I had played
Right.
a bit around with Facebook ads and was like, this is like it just felt like the new great wide open. So I decided to create a Facebook ad agency at the time. And that's what I think for the last 10 years on and off to a certain degree, but really running ads for tons and tons of different businesses, helping them grow and helping them implement ad strategies, as well as using my other background of just things that I've learned doing this for 20 years, helping businesses grow. So that's in it kind of in a nutshell.
Oh my gosh. Okay, what an amazing story. So I want to circle back to you sharing about your mom and being having her as like this entrepreneurial spirit that guided you. And so tell us a little bit about what it feels like to be an entrepreneur. Starting these businesses. Like how do you have I'm just going to call it like bravery to be like, I'm just going to do this?
That's a great question. I think for a lot of people, I think it comes down to our comfort with the unknown and uncertainty. And I've always been
Right.
somebody who's really comfortable throwing myself into chaos and thriving kind of in the unknown. Whereas, there's definitely a lot of people. When I did some consulting at Universal for Universal Studios or the entertainment, the film aspect, and helping them market either films that were either coming to video or going into theaters. And I remember just walking around the office, seeing people sitting at desks and just thinking about like people's different levels with comfort. Some people need a very steady paycheck, need to understand exactly what their dental insurance, and others don't. And I think entrepreneurs in general tend to be the people who are braver and who are willing to throw, caution to the wind and to jump all in. And because it does really take a certain level of comfort being uncomfortable and then figuring out how to
Right.
find comfort in the discomfort.
I love that.
Yeah.
So tell me a little bit about, how, I mean, we're talking, because I know as an educator and working in technology, and that's kind of where my passion started in being able to create just like videos in the classroom, something super simple, how that has shifted over time and like what you're experiencing now. And I want you to share a little bit about your adventures with Sora because I know that's been a very exciting journey for you to have taken and what that looks like over time, right?
Yeah, I think any of us in the marketing space or in the business space right now have been just completely, I don't even know what the right word, maybe overwhelmed with all of what's happening with AI and how it's disrupting specifically marketing, but businesses in general, but how there's so many new avenues and opportunities in the marketing space related to AI. You brought up Sora, which is an AI video generation tool that's owned by OpenAI and ChatGPT. And so I jumped into that. I got an early access to that and jumped into it and just started learning as much as I could. And then I created a product and sold a product about how to use Sora. And but it's one of many of so many tools. And I
Mhm.
think, it's like drinking out of a fire hydrant right now, trying to think about, okay, what are all these opportunities and the FOMO associated with feeling like you're missing out or you're going to be left behind if you don't capitalize on all this is real right now. And I think a lot of business owners are struggling with figuring out how to learn enough, implement, but also not waste time in terms of taking you away from the core things that you do that actually allow you to grow your business.
Do you have any advice? Because I see that all the time with all of the people that I work with that, it's like we get stuck almost in like this training mode where we feel like we had to take more classes and learn more about this tool and that tool. And, how do you balance keeping on the forefront of things, but also implementing those strategies? If you had some magic crystal ball that you were like, hey, this is what you should do, what advice would you give?
So I think that is a really good question. And I think again, and when we're talking about individual people looking at this issue, I think part of it is understanding or thinking about, at least in the moment, on what for me as a business owner is generating revenue for me. What is working in this moment, or what's worked in the last 6 months? And if I know this is working at this moment, how can AI potentially disrupt for me what's working right now, 6 months or a year from now? I don't even say a year from now, 6 months from now, because everything is moving so quickly. And I would even, s- you know, use AI to, or go into whatever your
Yes.
favorite tool is and say, hey, this is my business right now. This is how much revenue I do. This is my whole business process. Like how is my industry or my business going to transform in the next 6 months? And how do I
Okay.
future-proof myself to make sure that I don't get left behind? Because there are certain
Right.
industries that are going to get disrupted a lot more than others. And I think that understanding how to future-proof yourself and let the AI reverse engineer for you how to protect yourself may actually be the best way to, again, use the AI
Yes.
and to not waste your time chasing all the shiny objects.
That's a great idea to just take some time to do that. I love that concept. So, can you tell us a little bit? Because I'm always so curious. Ads for me, it makes me so nervous. And I'm like, oh my gosh, it feels sometimes like you're throwing money to the wind. Can you talk a little bit, because you have a great expertise in this? If someone was just getting started with ads, like what would be your solid advice other than to go sign up for some courses with you that you might have available?
Believe it or not, I don't even actually have any courses. I've offered courses in the past, but I don't actually have any. There are so many trainings and so many free resources and tools on YouTube and everywhere else. It's almost overwhelming. The thing about ads, specifically like meta ads, so Facebook and Instagram, is that they've gotten so complicated and they were never user friendly, but they've become so unuser friendly now more than ever. It is so easy to just burn money. What I would say, but they're, where in that there is massive amounts of opportunity and potential if you know how to use them. Okay, but here's the caveat. You still have to have an offer that resonates, right? Because ads are just one part of the puzzle, right? You still have to have an offer that resonates with an audience that wants that. And there still has to be demand for what you're putting out there and running ads. So I would say that ads can be an incredible tool in terms of testing things out. If you have a new offer, it can be a much faster way of testing things out, or of making mistakes and error, or like just figuring out what works and what doesn't work.
Right.
But typically, if something won't sell organically through your email or your social, then it really won't sell through ads, right? So you have to
Okay.
be really careful. People who are just starting with ads, I actually, believe it or not, I actually think running ads directly through the Instagram ad manager is a lot easier than the actual Facebook interface, which is just
Okay.
it's rocket science. I mean, it is not user friendly. It takes a lot of reps and a lot of practice to use it, but then to actually figure out how it works correctly. To be honest, the best way is to hire an agency or to hire someone to do this who has proficiency. It's like back in the day when I started in marketing, I wore all the hats, but
Right.
this industry as a whole or marketing in general has become so complicated. You don't hire your plumber to be your painter, right? Like you need different disciplines with subject matter expertise in order to really take advantage. But in saying that, there still are massive amount of opportunities with running ads if the ads are run correctly. But you do need to have a level of competency to make sure that you don't just, again, waste money.
Super fast friend, if you're loving this episode, make sure you follow the show and leave a 5-star review. And if you want help actually using AI to build content and sales, come join us inside the school community, AI Amplified Entrepreneurs. The link is in the show notes. What are some of the ways that you're utilizing AI in your expertise right now? Some of it doesn't necessarily have to be tools, but like workflows or things that you would say have really helped you to just be able to be more productive with your time and serve more.
Sure, yeah. Oh my gosh, I'm guilty of, chasing all the shiny objects and doing all the things. I've been using AI for ages to help with ad copy, and I use it more and more now to help with ad creatives, so to actually build out ads. But again, it's like anything, it's garbage in, garbage out. So it's a tool. So I'll rewrite sales pages or I'll recreate ads, and if it gets you 50% of the way there and it gives you something to work from, that's amazing. But you still have to have enough understanding of, again, of persuasive sales copy, of what your audience wants, of understanding what your avatar looks like. So I use AI a lot of times to just speed up the process of helping me to understand what a client or like a client's audience, or to improve things for a client, or to lay things out, or to actually, I mean, I love the tool NotebookLM, which is a Google
Okay.
tool, especially for client work. I'll put basically all of the different client resources into a NotebookLM. And then I actually basically create a mini brain of that client. So I can write ad copy. I understand what their voice looks like. I can map out everything that they're doing. That would be a tool that I use a lot. If you're looking for, I use so many different things.
Tell me about notebooks. So you put all those resources in there, and then, how do you get the output to be, helpful in the sense of, you have a certain format that you might use for ads, or, do you have it take that information and then put it somewhere else?
Yeah, so that's a great question. So typically, if I'm using NotebookLM, I'll pull in either blog posts or podcast episodes, so voice, so that I can actually really get a sense of how that specific client speaks, their
Okay.
tone, their voice, the words they use. And then from that, without me having to interview them, I can map out what their voice and tone sounds like, so that when we write ads, we're writing based on what their tone sounds like to try and make the copy sound as much like them as possible. So we'll
Mhm.
use all of, for example, the blog posts and the podcast episodes to map out what they speak like and their basically avatar, and then we'll write the copy based on what that gives us.
That's awesome. That's a great flow that I think that many of us could use by just even uploading our own brand information in and then being able to have conversations back and forth with that. What about if you're using, are you like Chat GPT, Claude? Do you have a favorite LLM that you're using?
Yeah, I do almost everything in Claude and Manus. I was a hardcore ChatGPT user, but I've since migrated. I really don't even use it anymore at all. I
Okay.
primarily use Claude. I like the ability to have projects in Claude.
Uh-huh.
So again, similar to NotebookLM, I'll create individual projects for clients, and then I'll basically have a resource repository for each individual client that we're working on. And then we'll either, again, it depends on what we're doing. If we're helping with marketing strategy, if we're doing ad mapping, if we're doing content mapping, we can basically do it all within a Claude project that understands all the resource documents that are directly connected. And the reason I actually really like Claude is that Claude will push back on me and will give me suggestions. It will say, "Hey, no, you're overthinking this, or you're making," and not a lot of that in my experience of the other LLMs are doing that as much. ChatGPT is too agreeable.
Uh-huh.
Um, I'm also been using Manus a lot for content. I've been building websites in Manus. I've been again using. Oh, I've also been using Perplexity Computer quite a bit lately, just in
Okay.
terms of mapping out. So for the agents within Perplexity Computer, say that 10 times fast. I've been mapping out, for example, doing reverse engineering of competitors for different industries and letting Perplexity Computer map things out. So figuring out different content strategies or angles or mapping out their whole funnels.
Can you tell me a little bit more about that? I may have a client that I'm like, oh, that would be a good use case. So I am is honestly not familiar at all with Perplexity. So do you want to
Sure.
maybe tell us a little bit about how that might work?
Yeah, so Perplexity Computer or Perplexity is basically been like the search engine LLM, right? Like
Okay.
almost like a replacement of Google. But Perplexity Computer, newer feature that it's only I think available on the more expensive paid version of Perplexity.
Okay.
But I pay for all of these, like depending on how much I
I
use.
know the
It's
subscriptions are
just
just, it feels a
killer.
little out of control for
It
sure.
is. Yeah. I've started using it again. A lot of this, and I think for most people who are like again, deer in the headlights, chasing the shiny objects, it's testing. All of this stuff is so new and it changes. You really have to test and whether you're testing out prompts or even seeing what's capable. And oftentimes I'll go into a new tool and I'll say, hey, can you help me map out or understand what's even possible with this tool? Or can you give me some use cases based on my industry? And then I'll let actually the tool tell me what it's good at or what's possible. I tend to, when I prompt, I tend to not tell it, what to do. I tend to tell my prompting revolves more around, hey, this is what I want to do. How do I do that? And I let
Right.
the AI tell me how to do it. I just tell it with the end result that I'm looking to for,
Right.
which tends to give me better outputs. So then, for example, with computer, which is an agent that operates directly within Perplexity, I'll say, hey, I want to do XYZ. is this something you can help me to do? Please ask me any qualifying questions to help me narrow down specifically what I'm trying to achieve. And it will outline what's possible or how, and then we'll come up with the framework through, again, through prompting or through, again, a back and forth dialogue. And then again, and then it's expanding on what the capacity is or what it's capable of. So the reverse engineering part, I was working with a client and I was looking at just some of their competitors, right? So I knew their website, I knew their socials, and I said, hey, I need to do a deep dive, or I really want to do a deep dive breakdown of this competitor. And I put in the URL on the socials, and I said, can you please help me understand what's possible in terms of understanding their marketing strategy, their full funnel breakdown, everything that they're doing that is persuasive, what's working, what's not, and then help me encapsulate that and then turn that into a training document. That's what I really want to figure out is how do I basically reverse engineer this entire competitor and then breaking it into a training document that we can apply to our business. Because I knew that competitor was doing really well. And so I went back and forth with Perplexity and Computer to try and figure out what that prompt looked like. And then it went out and then did all the competitive research based on all of those parameters.
Amazing. And that probably took your time just down to so minimal of what you had to do on the forefront. And then on the back end, you're like, okay, here's this amazing report.
100%. And then again, these are things that either I can use internally for me or even things that you can present to the client. I mean,
Right.
that to me is incredibly helpful, right?
Tell us a little bit about, you mentioned about the copy and like for using AI for the text, but how are you integrating like images and things like that with your agency?
Yeah, so this is something we're doing more and more. So in December when I launched a Sora training guide. I built videos that I ran as my ads, and I built all the ads, the video ads with Sora. So there were Soras of me promoting my guide, right? So they were all the ads were
Which are incredible, by the way, and everyone needs to run to Sora right now and search Andy Franco. Is that your username on there? What is
I'm
it?
pretty sure it is. Yeah, I'm pretty sure
Okay,
it is.
well,
But
I
yeah,
will put that in the show notes just for fun because they're incredible.
thank you. Thank you. Yeah, it's I again the wonderful thing about marketing and also AI is that you're only limited by your own creativity. You're only limited by how, what you think you can do or what you can come up with. And that's what for me is most fun about it. But in terms of, so I have a, this is a good question. I have a script. So I use like custom GPTs or gems or different things or prompts that I have I have different things that I use in different use cases.
Okay.
So one of the things that I've built out that I use when I'm building creative to run ads is I have a 12 part prompt chain
Okay.
that I use. And that's basically how it works. So what I'll do is so if I'm working with a specific sales page, right, that I know that we're going to run ads to, I'll take a full screen cap of the entire sales page from top to bottom. And then I'll upload that as a PDF, and then I'll start pasting in these different pre-built prompts. And the first prompt analyzes the kind of traffic that page is going to be sent to. So it's the top of funnel, middle of funnel. Is it warm traffic? Is it cold traffic? And then the second prompt is I'm going to just I'm going to ascertain who the audience is, who we're trying to target based on its current, format. Then the next one is I'm going to create the avatars that would potentially come up. And then the next prompt is I'm going to come up with all the potential objections of why someone wouldn't be a target here. And again, so there's about 12 prompts in this. So you paste each
Okay.
one into the same chat and it learns from each one. So it's constantly getting smarter and understanding more and more about that product and brand. And by the time we get to the bottom, there are two paste in prompts that one is to actually create ad copy based on all the other work that was done. And then the
Okay.
other one is to come up with creative image ideas for doing creative. And then one is to create video ideas, right? So those would be used in Flow. I typically create all of my ad images in Gemini. So in Flow, which is Nano Banana 2 or Nano Banana Pro, and then Flux. And so again, it just depends. Those are what I use.
Sure.
So
Okay.
I've been using, so I build custom prompts based on the copy and the ads. And then it becomes just a constant tweaking process to get it to where I want. And then I'll just continue to make iterations of static creatives and videos based on, again, this full prompt chain.
So typically, what is your clientele? Like, you working with solopreneurs? companies? What is your typical group?
Yeah, these days I'm primarily working with established entrepreneurs who are typically people who are working online. So business owners, course creators, online educators, coaches who have an established business who already have products that are selling. A lot of actually the people I've been working with lately are people whose marketing was working, but is having issues, right? Like things were working really well, but what was working 6 months ago isn't working as well as it is right now. I'm seeing that a lot across the board recently, a lot with like email deliverability issues, a lot with ad performance that's dropped off, unclear marketing plans. So really helping them so take a much broader picture of what's happening within their business and then trying to figure out what are the current things that are working, what are the current things that are not working, and how do we stay focused on what's working and future proof again as AI becomes more integrated into our society and daily life. How do we really focus on what's working and how do we give you a direct path so that you're not constantly chasing shiny objects and we can actually really work on the things that are moving the needle for the business.
I love that. I think that our audience should definitely think about working with you, at least for sure following you. So where can they find you on socials?
Sure. My social is Mr. Andy Franco. That's just Mr. Andy Franco, which is pretty straightforward. That's my Instagram. My company is called LiveSurge, LiveSurge.com. And we do a ton of things. We run a lot ads for a lot of clients. Again, then we do a lot of more strategic marketing and helping them with, again, a broader macro picture and fixing what's working and what's not working. And that comes from everything from refining offers to, again, running ads to figuring out bigger marketing strategy, podcast episodes. Again, it's pretty much a full service breakdown.
Awesome. All right. Thank you so much for spending time with us today. And I really appreciate all the insight that you've given us. So thank you.
Oh, my pleasure. Thank you so much for having me.
Thanks for listening to the AI Amplified podcast for entrepreneurs. If you want to learn more about my work, head on over to my website at aicoachingwithangelina.com. If you enjoyed today's episode, be sure to subscribe and share this podcast with a friend. See you next week.